Okay.
All right. We are obviously the infrastructure group. It is definitely a working title. We're trying to come up with something that makes infrastructure sexy, which is quite difficult. Who would have thunk it? So we really wanted to start out with defining, our project is really about asset management in the city of Ramsey and how the city can manage their thousands upon thousands of public assets that they own. And so we really wanted to start with a definition of asset management and kind of going into in depth what that really means, because I think that's not something that's like obvious or clear to everyone. We are going to focus our efforts on kind of doing case studies of asset management in other cities that are using these asset management software systems. And then we're also going to focus our efforts on looking at the actual software system, or hopefully looking at the actual software systems themselves and applying that to a specific corridor in Ramsey to really get a kind of a look at what that would look like in Ramsey.
Right. So we're going to have access to 3 different asset management systems that are being used by other cities in Minnesota. We have InfoSeek, we have PubWorks, and we have Cartograph. And they all kind of do different things. They all manage assets in a different way. Some of them are better for roads, for example. Some of them are more like umbrella systems that you use to organize all of your different types of assets, all your different departments who are going to be repairing roads. We're going to be scheduling repair requests that citizens put in. So basically, so our second poster, we start off, we have just kind of a rundown of asset management in Minnesota right now. So we have about 55% of Minnesota cities use either Excel or pen and paper to manage their assets, which is not the most efficient way to do it. So that's sort of the reason why we're doing this whole project. We want Ramsey to be on the cutting edge of asset management in the state. So to start off, we're going to do a case study for each asset management system. So for Cartograph, for example, they're using it in Maple Grove. So we're in the process of talking to the Parks Department in Maple Grove, getting a sense of the costs, how long it took to set it up, how long it took to train all their workers, kind of understanding what they use it for. So Cartograph happens to be really good at being an interactive tool for the public. So this is a system in which citizens will submit requests for maintenance, and that can be logged in Cartograph and then turned into a work notice and prioritized. And we kind of want to talk to Maple Grove, figure out what made them decide on Cartograph, and also figure out some of the disadvantages of it. And then, we don't have a poster for that yet, but moving forward, we will actually be using Cartograph and sort of submitting like an example of how Cartograph would look managing a specific corridor of Ramsey. So we have a corridor mapped out, and then we're going to, right there, and we're going to map it with Cartograph, and hopefully that'll provide an example of how Cartograph will work for Ramsey.
Okay, my work is focused on the PubWorks, implementing PubWorks to assessment in Ramsey. And firstly, I do some description of about the PubWorks, how it works, and it is divided into 6 models about the service requires GIS, map viewer, fleet maintenance, and mobile work orders. As it's important to be gathered together into the one surface called assessment management job costing core. And this core is very useful to do all of this in just one surface. It's important. And so given that we don't have the data of the infrastructure and the access to this PubWorks, so we find some feedbacks from other cities, just like the Roseville, and feedback of PubWorks using in the city of Roseville. And this city compare the PubWorks with Cartograph and CityWorks and compare the advantages and disadvantages of this softwares. So what I want is to use the data. Later we will got to do some pilot implement PubWorks in Ramsey. I think from my And I think it can be used in 4 aspects, such as road maintenance, the signs and signals, and the stormwater system, and the water management system. And I think this can describe a better infrastructure structure of the Ramsey.
Great, we have about 2 minutes for Q&A.
Sorry, I do have a question or maybe a suggestion, maybe it's already in the works, but I know there is another group working on specifically a tree inventory, and there's gotta be some crossover between the two, and if there's any talk about, you know, some of the systems you guys looking at, do they account for, do they have an aspect of the tree inventory? I noticed on the introductory poster, you're specifically, the picture is showing trees and irrigation and whatnot, so if it hasn't already, it'd be a great thing for this group and the other group to connect on some of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
I would agree, and I think it lands in this category here, the failure to act. So while these programs and asset management is costly, implementation is costly, staff time is costly, failure to act or have an asset management plan is costly.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes. Yes. I think we agree.
The other
Fernando,
comment
didn't
I was gonna make is just the layout and flow of your posters. When I'm thinking of myself as a professional or how the city would use this, I just wanna compliment you that it's easy for me to follow what the issue is, the scope of what's happening, and then identifying 3 clear alternatives. And I can imagine where this is gonna go at the end, it's gonna be really useful for the city, so I would just compliment you on the structure of this.
Thanks.
overall.
And I like the title. I like
Do
it.
you? Good.
We've got a couple in the works.
Yeah.
We might keep that way.
Sorry, though, infrastructure is still not sexy.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Maybe that's your title.
Sorry, yeah.
Don't do that, that's a joke.
I know. We've got some joke titles too.
I think, okay, so these are all positive comments, but I want to know what's going to happen next in terms of the data access, the tools, the availability for that. How's that looking?
We just got access to InfoSeek today.
Okay,
Just
so
about
you
an
have
hour,
access to that.
Yes, so we'll be working with that first.
Okay, so one of the major aspects of this is that they're actually going to test out the tool and also figure out what can be looked at and synthesized. And we don't know what that is in terms of time, in terms of findings. So a lot of this work is going to be actually trying out the tool and figuring that out as we go through. We may need to scale sort of like the intensity and also the scope of the findings, depending on how well you guys do that, right? But you seem to be in good shape in terms of data access and
Yeah.
data synthesis.
I think so.
Well, and I think that's also what the case studies are meant to be, to kind of provide that information from other cities that are currently using them, and like how they work, pros and cons, cost effectiveness, that sort of thing.
Can I add one thing? Is I would look at possibly like the ability to hand this off to other people to make less of a headache. Like if Excel has to do work and the city has plans, you don't want to mess it up. Or if Excel messes it up, the city can say, we told you stuff was here, you're liable, or just like the ability to hand things off from public to private, or even from one public to another public. Because I know in construction, you never give someone a document because they're gonna mess it up, and they're gonna use it wrong, and it's not official. So
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's definitely one of the things that we've talked to our partner about, and that having that institutional knowledge that can be passed easily, and also picking a program that's user-friendly and easy to train on, are all things that we are going to be considering.
Good, excellent work.